Hello lovers of Dynamic Series. I want to welcome you to another wonderful and interesting episode of Dynamic Series today. So on this episode, we'll be talking about effects of stress in the workplace on our body system. Effects of stress in the workplace on our body system. You know, you can see me so cacked up, ready to talk about. We're talking about workplace now. Do you constantly have headache whenever you get back at work or you get to the workplace? Do you observe severe and serious back pain, waist pain and body pain every time you get home or you're at workplace? Do you find yourself so aggressive and you are transferring aggression, and before you know it, you get angry at the slightest provocation? If your answer is yes to most of these things, then you are undergoing what we call stress in your workplace, or stress in your business, or stress in what you do. So before I get to the business of the day, I like to say thank you to every of my returning subscriber. Thank you for always viewing your girl. I love you all. And if you are viewing Dynamic Series for the first time, I promise you this is a place you want to be. We talk about real gist. We are very real here. We don't hide anything. We don't do hanky-panky. We don't gossip about people. But we talk about things that will change your life, and we love to invest in people. And that is what we're doing here. So if you love what you're viewing, I want you to go down to the subscribe button. Kindly click on the subscribe button and put on the notification bell beside the subscribe button, so that once your girl drops a new video, you get to see. So now let's get to the business of the day. The effect, after making lots of research, I come up with two different type of effects it has on one. The first one, it ranges into, there's the severe or the chronic or the acute effects that it has on us, and there's also the milder effects that it has on us. So let's start with the chronic, the acute effect it has on us. When the workload you are being given and the demand is more than the resources that you yourself have to be able to render those jobs or those roles, then there will be stress. So what are those effects it has on you? If you are beginning to notice some of those things, then you should know that you are beginning to experience work stress and you should look into it. The first one on my list is depression. Yes, when the workload is so encumbering, especially in a situation where we have conflicting demand and unclear performance, you keep having your boss shouting at you, you're not doing well, you're not doing your best and all, then it starts affecting you psychologically, and before you know it, when they keep bringing it in your ear every week, you are not doing as expected, you are not giving according to expectation, you are not working according to expectation, it becomes so disturbing, and before you know it, it can be so depressing and affect you. So that is the first thing on my list. It could lead to depression. So you have to look into it. If all those causes I've mentioned, you have any one of it, if you don't manage it very well and you don't look into it, it can lead to depression. That is the first one. The other one is irritability. If you find anyone who gets angry at the slightest provocation, they are always edgy. They snap at any time. They are very angry. That is another thing that work stress can actually cause, because it causes you to be excessively irritable. Like you get angry at the slightest thing. You are so edgy. A little thing like this gets on your nerves. That is another thing that work stress causes for you. Another thing it causes is fatigue. There is intense weariness, tiredness. You see someone getting tired. When you have to, one of the causes of that is when there's the distance between your workplace and your home, when it's too far. The time you're supposed to be spending resting, you spend it in traffic, and you wake up the next morning, you have to wake up very early again. Imagine if you have to prepare food for your family. On the part of the women, take care of your family before they go to work. On the part of the men, if you have to probably drop your kids at school and do some other things, it can be so stressful. So you need to look into that. Another thing that effect that it has on you, one of the chronic effects, is anxiety. There's presence of fear. You become nervous at every little thing. You are nervous. You become so scared. Then you need to watch it. That is another causes or effect of work stress on you. Another one is aggressiveness. You see people become so aggressive, everything they are always, so they handle everything with aggressiveness, there's too much of energy. Energy is good, but when it is excessive, then you have to look into it. That is another thing that work stress can cause for you. Then some people can become tearful. After a long stressful day, you see them, they are close to tears, especially if you have a boss that it's not easy for you to satisfy. The boss keeps complaining, keeps saying you're not doing your best, you're not giving your best, and every time you keep putting in your efforts, but there's complaint here and there. That can also be one of the causes of work stress. One of the effects of work stress on you. Then another condition is when you are unmotivated. Probably the workload is much and they are paying you very low salary. Some work, they mount a lot of workload on you. They give you lots of job roles. At first, when you're picking the job, they tell you this is what you will do. But eventually, when you will now pick the job finish, the story now changes. Then before you know it, you now start being like, hey, you're not performing well, you're not doing well. They will give you plenty work, pay you low salary. And that is one of the things that is happening in Nigeria. When there's no labor law to look into all this. So that's another effect, chronic effect can have on you. And another one is difficulty concentrating and solving problems. When the stress is so much, it causes you can't even concentrate. The complaint is much, there is conflicting demand. They tell you something to do this, you are doing it, and they tell you that's not the way they want it, they want it another way, and you're trying to do it that way. They tell you, why don't you go back to the way you were doing it before? It could be so encumbering and so confusing, and before you know it, it becomes so tiring and it begins to affect you. When you are now being given a problem to solve or to come up with beautiful ideas, it's not done. You won't be able to do it. You won't be able to come up with solutions, to provide solutions to problems. So that's one of the effects. And another thing, when it is not when work stress is not well managed, if all this depression, anxiety, all this irritability, fatigue, if motivation, when it's compounds, it can start leading to other heart diseases. It can degenerate into other diseases that can affect your heart, and before you know it, it can affect you generally. So you see why you have to look into it. So now let's talk about the milder effects. Let's talk about the milder, if it's permit me to read from my journal. Let's talk about the milder effect of work stress. What are the milder effects of the work stress? We talk about the chronic and the acute ones. So now the first one, one of the milder ones is headache. When you come back from work, you keep having constant headache. Every time you're having headache, you're not feeling fine, you're not feeling good, you're not okay. That is a sign of work stress, and you need to look into it. Then another thing is feeling nauseated, feeling of nausea. You're not feeling so well. You feel nauseated, like you want to vomit, like indigestion, you are not okay, back pain, waist pain, when you probably back pain as a result of sitting for too long, there is no break, you are not observing break, or maybe for those who work in factory or those who do businesses, maybe you are standing in a particular position for too long. All this can affect you. It does not mean it has to do with corporate jobs. It could be businesses, it could be maybe you are working in an informal settings. Whichever one, we need to manage our work stress. And another thing is palpitation. So a lot of things come together to affect us. So we need to look into how all those effects and what are those causes that we've talked about. I've talked about the causes of work stress. I've talked about all the effects it had on you, the acute effects, the chronic ones, and the milder ones. And in subsequent video, I'll be coming about how then can we manage work stress. I know that is what a lot of you are waiting for. And don't worry, I have lots of research I've done, and I have lots of things that can help you to manage your work stress. And before you know it, your performance at the workplace will increase, and at the same time, you will be able to rest well, and psychologically, mentally, physically, you'll be sound and okay. And at the same time, you'll be able to support your family and do the needful. So that will be all on this episode of Dynamic Series. I want you to have a wonderful and interesting week, and I want you to manage your time very well, manage yourself very well, pay attention to all those effects. If there are other effects I've not mentioned, go down to the video below and see that you mention them and you drop them. And that will be all today. Do have a wonderful and lovely day. Thank you.